Hello. 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 All right. All right, to heck with that. How's everybody doing tonight? I don't know which camera I'm on. I got cameras all over the place tonight. Figured I would just make it a little easier on myself. Give you guys a couple of different cameras. So, we're getting started a little earlier tonight. I'm back from out of town. I've been gone for, I don't know, a little over a week now. Coming up on, I don't know, 10 days tomorrow, maybe? 9 days, 8 days, 9, I don't know. A while. But anyway, let's make sure my audio is working. Let's see if I can get the a couple of things here. Let's just get rid of this message. That shouldn't be there. And let's double check the audio, make sure you can hear me. It looks like you can. That's good. And tonight, when I left last, we hooked up the BitMiner to run, and let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. I think I got a good close-up camera working this time. So let's see if this thing is working. Can you see me on this camera? Well, it looks like it's frozen. Why is it frozen? Well, let's just come back up here. All right, that just froze right there. So we'll go to one of these other views here. I've got a couple of other views tonight. So let me just put you on this primary camera here. Anyway, the last time we were here, I'm going to grab this camera and do a little moving around here so that I can show you guys things, because that's what that camera was supposed to be for. But it didn't work out that way. So here is the BitMiner. And the last time we were here, we were working on the BitMiner down here in the corner on the solar shed. We were basically hooking this puppy up so that the relay in this could turn the BitMiner off and on. Now, good news is, while I was out of town, it worked flawlessly. But what I want to do is I want to finish putting, I think tonight what I want to do is I want to finish putting the backboard up here. Now that I've got that mounted where it needs to be, the wires that need to be behind the wall are behind the wall. I've got the outlets run from the ones here that I want from the ones here. The only one I don't have is the one coming from the Pikachu up here. I probably can show you that with this camera over here. Wow. None of those are working the way they're supposed to. All right, let's just go down here to... Never works out the way you want it to, does it? All right, so this tangled mess is my biggest problem right now. So, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to clean up all this wire and still have this opening in the back here because the heat radiates in off of this back wall here. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get the Pikachu inverter over there, which is that EG4 3000 watt one. I haven't got it hooked up yet. So it will run off of the same battery system that we have here. So what I want to do, and since it's just going to run off these bus bars and it's not going to run off of any of the batteries down here, I'm going to go ahead and mount that across the bottom here. The PV lines come in over there, so we'll pull those out. The conduit stops in this wall right above this 2x4. So I'm just going to pull them out of this wall right here, and I'm going to mount a PV combiner box in there so that they can go right into that box, and that'll keep that code compliant. But tonight I want to take these couple pieces of this wood that I've got here for this bottom, and we're going to mount this over there. And just kind of, the first section will go from here over to right underneath that red bus bar, and then the second section will be over there. And then I can clean up all these stinking wires. Man, this system has got a ton of wires. And I just want to get it all cleaned up and make sure that it it isn't just kind of all messy. Now I don't know where let's see if I can just go. With this one here, which is the main stable camera, and I should be able to get a picture-in-picture going here where we can get you a good view of what I'm working on with this one, and then you can still see me and I can talk to you through that one. So that one should work the best for us, and then that allows that to go. So what I want to do is I want to take this, I cut this wood so that it would fit in two pieces for this back drop here. And the reason I'm using wood is that if I use sheetrock, I can't really mount things on it real well. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook this stuff up. And I'm just hanging out in the solar shed tonight, just working on all the kind of stuff I normally work on. So you got comments and stuff that you want to talk about, please feel free to let me know what it is. I've just started doing these live streams because they're kind of fun. You guys get to see what's going on, and it's a little bit more, realistic day-to-day kind of garbage that we work on, being in this business and working on, the solar system all the time. The test system, which I have on the other side of the room, it worked pretty good while I was out of town also. If you remember correctly, right before I left, let me see if I can turn you over in that direction and see the mess I got over there. Right before I left on this one, you can see I had, and I don't even know if this camera is going to work that way. This is from the coffee trailer. And so I pulled it out of the coffee trailer and put it here, and it has a 24-volt battery in it. And then I have the EcoWorthies running their cycling testing over here. They're 280 amp hour batteries, and they're just cycling every day going in and out. And then I've got this hooked up to the to a 24-volt inverter that's fired with the charge inverter automatically. Whenever it gets full, it just transfers that power over the 24-volt system. So, and we can go through the stats and stuff on that also. But tonight, really what I'm thinking about doing, unless we just have specific questions and stuff, is I'm just going to kind of focus on getting this piece mounted and done. And we'll see what we can do with that. So I'm going to start off by clearing up some of these wires here. I probably should just pull this camera back so that you can kind of see what I'm up to and what's going on here. And let me see if I can get this set back a little bit so you've got a good view of what's going on. See if that's good enough there. And then I probably need to pull back out on the zoom because I probably zoomed it when I went to the other side of the room. That probably give you a pretty decent view there. I'm going to slide this chair out of the way. Now I haven't done any I haven't done any prep tonight for as far as equipment or anything like that. So the shed's still in the really early stages of trying to get the walls up enough so I can get all the equipment put up and put away and everything. So I don't even have a rack yet for the batteries. They're sitting here on the floor. And I had a huge windstorm when I was out of town, and you can see all this stuff on the floor. I mean, there's acorns in here and all kinds of stuff from that blew around from earlier. So I'm going to start by getting this bit miner out of here so I don't accidentally damage it. There's no chance of it coming on tonight. It ran this afternoon for a few hours. It's been running a few hours every day, with the exception of yesterday it did not run. Believe it or not, yesterday it didn't run because the windstorm from the day before was so strong that it knocked over some of those panels I had out in the yard that you've seen on all of my other videos. So with that, I wasn't able to, let's see if this works here. So I should be able to switch the screen now from this to computer screen. That looks good. To the picture-in-picture. That looks good. And just the regular primary screen. Okay, good. All right. So we're going to use this one for most of the night here. And so anyway, I'm going to just start like I said, I'm going to get this bit miner out of here. Don't want to damage it, so I want to be careful now. I did have grid power hooked up while I was gone. I've got a bunch of freezers and stuff out here. And as you, oh my goodness, this thing is heavy. As you guys know, I had configured a whole bunch of switches and relays and power swapping and stuff like that right before I left. And I didn't want to take a chance on not being able to, of anything going out while I was gone. So I did leave it with a grid backup. And the only reason I had the grid hooked up originally was because when I got the bit miner, I didn't have really enough power to test everything. So what I did is I hooked up the grid and ran a whole bunch of bit mining for a few days, getting all the off-on switches and everything to fire correctly and all that kind of stuff. It made for an interesting collection of data. I did process a lot, collected about 2,000, no, almost 3,000 coins from Digibyte coins. A couple of minor bit miner type stuff. Wow, all this stuff just blew in from that storm. And wow, that was a lot of garbage. What I get for leaving the door cracked to let the heat from the bit miner run out. So anyway, so I did that. That was wow, where does all this stuff come from? Okay, so let's finish cleaning this up here so that we can see. I need to get to this piece right here. So I'm gonna see if I'm going to pull these batteries out just a little bit. I want these wires up off the wall, this one and this one. That one stays behind, that one stays behind, but then all of these have to come out and off of that wall. So I don't want to take any chance on damaging anything, but I do need them off out of the way from the wall. In order to do that, this one out here has to slide out a little bit, but there's not really a lot of room here to slide. So slide them the best we can. I might end up sliding this one out and just turning it because it is much, much longer cable. And then we have this cable over here, which runs to this, what I call the bastard battery. 2 Chinese batteries, a super in power and a lead time smart battery, all combined, all 12-volt batteries combined into a 48-volt battery. And then I have to do this. Now, I'm not going to do that piece first. So I'm going to do this piece over here first. So once I get this piece done, maybe what I can do is slide these a few inches this way, making enough room to get into that side and get that side done. Yeah, maybe that's the way I can do this. So I don't have enough room to turn this any whatsoever because that one is stretched all the way to the limit. So the only other option I have here is take this battery out of the bank and slide it out. But let's see if we can do this without doing that. Because the only real wiring problems we have here are these little red ones and a couple of this black one here. But I could definitely reroute these or pull them up out of the way. This one I'm going to go up over. I'm going to flip that off permanently so that I don't have any chance of any of the wires in here being live. Let's see what else we got here. So let's break out the measuring tape. So we need to do this piece of wood, and if I remember correctly, I cut this to height. We got to get rid of this charge verter cable too. Let's do that. We can just pull this up and out of the way really good. Okay, that's good. And then I don't like all of these cables down here hanging and dangling in the way while I do this, but I'm not sure I have much of a choice until I have a way to clean them up. This one comes out and around there. I'm just going to unplug this one, pull it out of here. And then take it up through all this up here to hold it up out of the way and plug it back in up here. All right, that'll get it up out of the way until I decide to reconnect it back down here. But at least by then I can use, I bought some of these clips. I don't know if they're going to be any good. I bought some of these clips. Like this here, you can see these little things, and they'll kind of hold the wire, like it has a slot for the wire on this side and a slot for a wire on that side, and then they kind of hold the wire in the track. So I'm hoping I can use these. If this doesn't work, then I've got the little zip tie things I can use to clip things on, or I've got maybe the little race tracks or stuff. Either way, I want to get all these wires cleaned up where it looks nice. I've even considered putting a nice conduit box down here and just put all this in the conduit box. And just have these just straight, drop straight down into a conduit box and just take out all this wiring mess completely. I may order a rack for the rack mount batteries, and that way I just have them in a rack mount batteries in a bus on that rack, and then just have a one wire run into this. I don't know. I haven't decided yet really what I want to do with that. So we'll just kind of ad lib as we go along. Okay, so I'm going to move this up out of the way, and I just want to double check the height of this. Okay, so that's not right. That's the one. Okay, so this is the right height. So what I want to do, I'm going to disconnect this shunt and just drop this cable over here so it doesn't get damaged. I wonder if I could take these two off also. I need a tiny screwdriver for those little Victron connectors, I don't know where anything is. Like I said, I haven't been here in a week, and I didn't have but a mess when I left. So I left myself a huge mess. I don't know where anything is, but it's still... I'm just looking for something to release that. Maybe the screw will let me to release it. Nice piece of copper too would do it. Here we go. Let's just see if we can get these leads to come out of here. I'm not even sure I can see those. Really a tight fit. So get some, I'm going to try some glasses and see if that helps. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. My eyes are right in the middle now, where sometimes they help and sometimes they hurt. Nope. It does need to be a screwdriver. Okay, let me go find a little screwdriver. Well, let's just try it this way. Probe from this. And 1 and 2. Okay. That's much better. I'll take those out. And then we're going to take this and we're going to pull these up out of the way. And that way I don't have to worry about them getting damaged. These little wires, these little lead wires from the Victron always worry me. I never find a good way to manage them. But that's what we're going to do this time around. We're going to get all this built here, and then we're going to come back and clean all these wires up in another. All right, there. Now we're looking pretty good. Okay, so let's take that plate off, because now we're going to have to measure where these plugs are and cut out the what we need out of that piece of wood. Put that there. All right. Yeah, let's see how we have. Yeah, let's just make sure this is long enough. Fits. It should fit right up to the gap over there. I'm not sure what it's catching on right now. Probably that cable. Oh yeah, that's going to be just fine. Looks like I can cut it. Like I don't like the tightness of this. Really can't get to it. I think I'm going to take this battery off the bank, and if I just pop this one off, then I can slide those other two out. There won't be much of a difference between them, and then I can have a little bit more room to safely move this stuff around. It's just not worth taking any risk on damaging anything. Got all my tools in my tool, or I've got a set of tools in my tool bag here, so might be able to find everything I need. The 15. Yeah, let's see what we got here. Just want to take this one off. And then over here, I'll loosen this one. I'm going to turn this breaker off. Set these bus bar covers up there. What I did with that other one. Let's go. Disconnect the communications port. Now that should have dropped the inverter. If it lost communications, it would have shut the whole inverter off. So it should have dropped it to 200. And it did, 200 amp hours, because I unplugged one of the batteries. So, and because I shut it off, that probably was enough. All right, so I'm gonna just take this off. All right, now we're just gonna slide this battery out. And these things are pretty hefty. They're about 100 and I think they're 106 pounds a piece. These rack mount batteries, these 100 amp hour, 48 volt rack mount batteries are not light. So now I should be able to slide this battery out, making some room to slide this battery out, making some room to fit this in where it needs to be. And I just want to make sure this is going to fit before I do this. As you can see, it is a tight fit down here at the bottom. So we're going to have to start off by trimming a piece of the bottom off to make this fit. And then we can go from there. It looks like it's just a tiny bit too tall. Just a tiny bit. We have a straight, looks like a factory straight edge on this piece. So I could probably just get this side here. Just find a place to cut with. Wow, I left this place in a disaster. So, hope everybody's having a good New Year's. It's been quite busy so far for me. I'm going to pull this card out over here. Just change the angle on this camera for you guys, so you can just see what I'm thinking is. What I'm thinking is we're just going to put this here. We're just going to trim off a very small section of this. So let me grab a straight edge. Thinking if we do this, we could just mark a small piece right off the bottom. And then I'll just take a saw and just go right over the edge there. Yeah, Chuck, let me see if I can find your message from you. We're just, yeah, we're just doing a little bit of maintenance. Just kind of playing a little bit with, here in the solar shed, just kind of fun. Nothing really major. We hooked up the bit miner the other night, and then I've been out of town for a week, so I decided I would just kind of go on live, and we're just doing maintenance, just kind of cleaning it up. Right now I'm mounting into the, down underneath these panels, or underneath this system over here. We're going to be mounting the rest of the wall so I can mount all of the fixtures and everything to it. I think that I should give you a view. Well, that's not a very good view. Let me just give you a little bit better view here. So you can see here, all of this down here is what I want to get covered up and taken care of so that we can so just kind of doing some maintenance as we go along. Hopefully that answers your question. And let's see, let's just take out the saw. So we need to find me some glasses. And I think I have the saws just right down here. Just gonna rip off a tiny piece of that. What, stretch from there? I don't even need an extension cord, do I? Probably could just slide this right over here and do it right off this plug. All right. Hopefully this won't be too loud. We'll see. That was good and noisy. Woo! All right. Now, let's double check this to make sure we got that right. Double check that camera here. All right, so we're coming in down here. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with all these cords that are in the way. All right. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. And it's got a little bit of an overhang there. So now, we're gonna have to figure out let's figure out what we can do with cutting out the pieces we need. We're gonna have to measure over and then just cut them out. I think I'm gonna just use a jigsaw for that. Just pull out the old trusty jigsaw, and what I'll do is I'm gonna roll this cart back over here. Let's transfer what we need. So if this is the bottom, you know, I don't remember. I don't know if I twisted that. I want to make sure that I know it's taller than it is wider. Okay, that is the right way. Okay, so that means this is the bottom here. I'm just going to mark this with the bottom, top, left, right. Okay. So let's transpose what we need to cut out from these two outlets onto this. And then we can, from there, we can figure out, I don't know what I'm doing with these cameras here. They're not working the way I wanted them to. That might be a little bit better. Okay, and I'll transfer this one over where you guys can see. So what I'm thinking of doing is, oh, I see now. That's the problem. We'll transpose what we have down here to up there. So let me grab a tape measure here. We're going to measure in from. The nice thing is both of these are lined up at the same spot. So we can come in 7 3/8, 7 and got that little bit of a lip right there where that nameplate comes. But if I had to, I could probably take that off. Let's see, 7 1/8. Let's call it 7 1/8. And 7 1/8 there too. So 7 1/8, 7 1/8, 7 1/8. We can just basically run that all the way up like that. And then we'll get this side here. This one I can measure down. Let's start with 7 1/8. Let's just put a straight line across the 7 1/8 from this side here. Yeah, I got one big problem is my cut on that side is as crooked as the day is long. Look at that. Wow, that is terrible. That ain't straight at all. I wonder if that was meant to be upside down. Let me just double check that. I should have marked it when I cut it. I wasn't expecting to leave town before. So if I put this in upside down, that puts the crooked side over here and the straight side over here. And I'll bet, yeah, that's going to work much better. All right, that's what we're going to do then. And we're going to take this, move this out of the way for now, and make sure this side is somewhat straight. No, they are both crooked. Therein lies the problem. All right, let's double check that measurement. 7 1/8, right? 7 1/8. All the way up. All right. So this bottom piece here is pretty straight. This top piece goes in, and this bottom piece here is much straighter than that there. So if I do the 7 1/8 from here, can't do it with a stupid counter in the way, can I? The 7 1/8 here. I should be able to pull this from this top line, which is straight. And that worked. Okay. That gives me a fairly straight, well, I'm going to say somewhat straight line to work with. All right. So, that said, if I measure down from here, uh, 4 inches, I'm going to come down from here. You know, line to line straight here, because this edge over here is not straight. And then we are going to go across this box 2.5. 2.5 inches. Right about there. So that should be pretty straight, and it is. And of course my pin stopped working. Really? All right. And then outlet is I don't know. I haven't cut a whole lot of outlets out like this. Usually when it's sheetrock, you do it after the fact. So if you guys have an idea of a better way to cut these holes to make them match that before I take the saw to it, let's hear it. Because I'm just going to, on this second one, I'm just going to measure up from the ground from here up. Actually, I need to go from here down. And we're going to go 19 3/4. Four inches across. 19 3/4. Nineteen 3/4. And then we're going to go down or out 4 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a ruler on this thing, by the way. That's what I'm using. And then down 4 inches also. And that should cover. All right. And here. And then we're going to draw a line here. And a line here. Then we need to know how wide the big box is, which is 8 inches. So we'll go 8 1/4 on that one, just to cover. Here. All right. So all that said, let me show you what I got here. So here's what I basically cut, or I'm going to cut, is this one up here is standard wall plug. And then down here, straight down. That's why I started with that first one line, because they're on that stud there, so it should be straight up and down. And then I measured it, it started at exactly the same spot. And this is that top plug. And that's that bottom box there for this piece here. And then there's nothing else back there. This side lines up with the stud, and then the studs run, double studs run here. So this will be open back end, but there's nothing that's going to be attached over there. So it should be okay. So what we'll do is we'll cut this out, we'll make sure it works, and then we will paint it the black, the same black that we use on the rest of this. And then while that dries, we can prep the other side so that we can do that one also. I think that, see if I can do that. There we go. So I think that will get us the best, the best thing is just basically we cut this one out here. We'll cut this one out. We'll paint the whole thing black, and then we'll start on the other piece of wood over there for the other side on the far side over there. So that will take us to that picture. Hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of where I'm headed here. So let's start off by drilling a hole here. Over here, I don't need to drill any holes. I just need to cut it. But I think I'm going to start by drilling this little one up at the top, and then jigsaw it out, and then check to see if it lines up with the actual outlet back here behind it. So, and you did not see me cut off any of the power to these outlets here, as they are not connected to anything. There's 3 outlets there that are eventually going to run to this 3000 watt EG4 inverter, but that thing isn't hooked up yet, because I wanted to get all of this done before I connected it up. So let's start with, let's just take this is a nice wood drill bit. Let's just put a hole here. See if I can get this in the corner so I don't have to re-drill the corner. Wow, that just chewed through that. Okay. Now let's take the let's take the jigsaw and see if I can raise this up for you guys to see it. I think you can see it like that, can't you? Yeah, not too bad. So we'll take the jigsaw. Matter of fact, I'll turn this around this way. And I'll plug the jigsaw over here. We can get to this easily. The only thing I got to do is keep from cutting the bottom of my table off. I do want to put on, I had a blade snap on me a few weeks ago and surprisingly shot out with a lot of force. So now it's made me a little bit more cautious to wearing glasses because it scared the crap out of me. So safety first, guys. All right, let's just turn this way. And here we go. Get that first corner out of there. Now we can cut across it. I still have the metal blade in here too. Oh well, I'm not going to change it because we're not going to cut that much. I should have switched these to wood blades. That's okay. Surprisingly cutting very well for... Feels like it's... Oh, it is. I was going to say, that feels like it's at an angle. It's crooked. Ain't that the squirreliness? Still don't look straight. I had to cut it a second time because it's crooked, and that causes it to cut angles like that. All right. I think that's a good... got a little bit of the crookedness from it, from that blade being initially crooked, but it should be good enough to get us in that wall plug. Hopefully. Let me just move all this out of the way. Hopefully that other camera will track down. Oh, it does. Okay, good. So let's see now if this is going to fit before we move on to cutting the other one, because if this one's wrong, that one's going to be wrong too. And it is just a little bit, oh, actually it's not. Once I pull that plug off, it'll slip right over top of the top. Okay. So now let's cut the bottom of this out. It should be a little bit bigger cut. We'll cut up here. Should be a little easier cut here. All right, we got most of this out now. Just this little top piece here. One more little cut. And then cut this corner. There we go, guys. All right. So as you can see now, we got the top outlet and the bottom outlet. So let's see if we can, let's see what it's going to take to get this in there. My guess is that I got to pull that top plug off and maybe even that mud cover off the bottom. I can't do too much of that bottom one though, because the mud cover will not go back on the way those are designed after I put this on. So I think I am going to pull that top one off though right away, because this one, these are designed to fit in and then use the board as support to hold the plug. So we'll do this. This one I cut large enough, hopefully, to where we don't need to. But you know what I could do? Could take this out this way, and then that way it can fit over it. All right, that's worth a shot. And I don't know what that was all about. If I wanted it to slide down like that, it would have never happened. You guys still with me out there? All right, yeah, I see you. Okay. Hope I'm not boring you all to death. Figured I was going to do all this. And better to have you around than nothing else to do anyway, right? That's interesting fit. All right, so it looks like this one down here is tremendously short. I must have measured it all off by inch. This one appears perfect, so this one just needs to go up more. So I must have been off in my measurement somewhere. But so I'm going to have to trim out a little bit more up into this area here and over here. And both of them are off. So whatever I was measuring from, maybe I measured from the inside of that 2x4 instead of the outside. Maybe I measured from here as opposed to all the way up. So let's get a tape measure and find out what the hell I did. Fortunately, it's not irrecoverable. So we are 18 and 3/8 and 22 and yeah, 19 and 3/8 and 23 and 3/8. Okay. I am off exactly an inch. So let's go back to the jigsaw. And let's take another inch. It happens. That's why they say measure twice. I measured once and now I'm going to cut twice. There. And there. Same thing over here. I just need another inch. Wow. Didn't really want that to slam on the ground, so it was a pretty good catch. All right. So let's take the jigsaw, cut off that extra inch. It shouldn't take but a second. Damn, splinter went right up between the nail. All right. Hopefully, this time, I left that cameras where you can see. Yeah, I did. All right, hopefully this time we got this right. Ah. hell is holding that up? It's weird. There's something right here. Looks like the edge of that box. Yeah, that's what it is too. Okay. Yeah. Let's just the top of this box is just a little bit extending down, just a tiny bit too much. Okay. Now I'm sure we have it. Good, tight fit. That's beautiful. All right. That's that. So, I'm going to push this down here. Get this piece down here. What I'm thinking, we'll paint this piece, and then while this piece dries, we can cut that other piece. But I don't want to paint it too close to all that cutting, as the we'll just turn all these cameras this direction. Hopefully you can see me from that angle. Yeah, I just need to turn this one just a little bit more, and it should turn its focus on me, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll take this, we'll paint it. I need to get this cable, this cord out of my way. This big 50 amp power cord hooked into that give us grid out here for the week while I was traveling is kind of big and bulky and in the way. Okay, so now let's see if we can just do a little painting. I don't even remember what I did with the paintbrush, to be honest with you. It's the caulk from when I was caulking. Oh, here it is. Okay. So we'll do a little painting, and then we'll go back over there to that side and get that finished. And all right, let's get started. Let's find us a screwdriver to pop the can on this paint. The solar shed we've been working on here, the 48 volt system, I've been considering buying one of those, I don't know if it'll be buying, but I'm hoping to get one of those big 56 MB56 600 amp hour batteries to add to it, or some additional 48 volt batteries to extend the battery life in here. So every day the bit miner comes on when the batteries hit 65%, and I have more than 1500 in PV. I played with a few numbers, a couple of different statistics and stuff, and that one seems to work the best. By the time it comes on, that it shuts off at 45%. And the idea behind that is I still want it to be able to run refrigeration and stuff if I have a bad day. So right now I'm sitting at, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 days of autonomy, because I've only got a couple of freezers and a few things in here, and I've got 400 amp hours, or 20 kilowatt hours of battery power. So because I've got so much, so I let it run. Now we're still in winter hours, and I still don't have all the panels actually officially mounted yet. So hopefully here over the next couple of weeks, I'll get the shed up, or not the shed, I'll get the fence up. And once I get the fence up, then I can do some serious mounting of the panels, because they're kind of in the same stage as everything in here, where I'm waiting to get the base underneath done so I can clean up all the mounting and wires and all that stuff. So I want to do the same thing with the panels. So what I'm thinking about doing is mounting across the back of the yard. I've got a big section that's 50, 60 feet, and just put 50 or 60 feet of vertical panels all the way down the back side, because it's got perfect sun all day long. Now in the winter it would be fantastic. Worried about is in the summer, so I might have to build a little tilt system for them, where I can tilt them and go from 90 degrees down when windstorms and stuff come through, with the hurricanes too, I guess, to vertical. So that would be vertical, which would get good power, especially in the winter around here, because that sun is good way down in the sky in that direction. They'd be shining right on those panels. So even the ones that I have laying on the ground at this point are not doing too bad during the day. I've got a bunch leaned up against the shed at about the same angle that I would get out of a tilt system. So what I might do is like hinge the top of the panels where I can tilt them out like this, where they'd still be attached to the fence at the top, but they would come out from the fence like this. And then I can just prop them up like that. So in the summer months, when the weather's nice, I can prop them up and get, maybe a 20 or 30 degree angle on them. And then when the winter months come along, or when, there's bad weather or whatnot, I can tuck them down right up against the fence, and then just put in, good strong fence. The question becomes is, what do I use for a tilt system? I'm thinking about using like normal door hinges for the top of the solar panel. So one on this side and one on this side of the solar panel, and then the whole thing would just tilt up like a door hinge. Maybe use some of those spring loads on the bottom to help with the weight of the panels to hold them up. So I don't know, I haven't really thought it out completely yet, but that sounds like it would be a lot of fun to build. Because some of this, for me, it isn't so much that I need to do it. I'm just doing it because it's fun. And it would provide a shit ton of power to the bit miner, which is where I'm, doing my burn off of power. And some people use a pool, and others use hot water but my house is already 100% off the grid. well, it's not off the grid. My house is zeroed, where I get a give and a take, and I don't pay for any electricity. Although I might this month. This might be the first month since 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, when I bought the solar system, that I pay for power, simply because at the beginning of this month, for the first 4 or 5 days, I turned that Bitminer on, and I didn't turn it off. And I ran lots and lots and lots of, did a lot of processing without worrying about how much power I was using. And then I used the grid feed over here to pull from the house, which technically is the solar from the grid at night, and it's the solar system during the day. And so, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that much. Figured it would be, either way, it'll be a fun project. I want to get that fence done first, though, because that's really gives me the privacy from the neighbors and stuff, where I don't look like, I've got a junkyard sitting in the back of my backyard. And that way, it's the panels, I can mount them nicely up on the fence, and they don't look bad, or at least they won't be able to see them. I'm going to paint these edges too. That way, when I put this in, it's painted around the edges and you don't see any extra wood. I don't have to figure out how I'm going to get a paintbrush back there. And then I did get all the automation working, though, for the solar. Once I get done painting here, I'll show you some of the stats from this last week. That was kind of interesting. The Bitminer came on at, like I said, 65%, and then it would shut off at 45%. 65 and 40, yeah, 45. And that 25%, or that 20%, usually by the time it came on, it had, first of all, it had enough of a buffer that if the sun, was going up and down, it could use that 20% as a buffer. But for the most part, it didn't need the buffer, because it also had, not only did it have to have 65% battery power, which means the sun was shining bright, but it also still had to have a minimum of 1,500 watts coming in just from the two in the inverter. And I could have hooked it up and said, look, it needs enough to support the whole thing, but I would have had to go in and create an array or in Home Assistant and tell it to add the two together and blah, blah, blah. And to be honest with you, it didn't make that much difference to me. I told it to, if you had 45% battery, then it would just shut off. So even if it was a little bit low, it was going to shut off on time anyway. So it wasn't a big deal. But it seems to work really well. Now, I did start off with some other percentages and worked with that a little bit, but it didn't, this seemed to work the best. It came on and then it ran until it was pretty much done for the day. Now, what it does do is occasionally, right now before the time change, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon is about the time when the sun starts to dip down and we don't have enough solar to support it, so the battery starts to drop around 3. By the time it gets to 4 o'clock, it depends on how aggressive the sun was all day to how much time it's going to run after it. Now, a few days ago, the ChargeVerter kicked off with all of the battery power from the 24-volt system and pumped it like plumb full. And I didn't let the system automatically kick on, and I should have, because I've got it set to where if the battery gets to 90%, that the Bitminer just turns on. I didn't let it come on. Then the sun came out and it started charging, and it was sitting at 97%. So then I turned it on. By the time I got it turned on, it was generating enough power to support itself. So the battery was slowly creeping up at 97.1, 97.2, 97.3. And at that afternoon, which was, let me see, that was day before yesterday, a big windstorm came through. Now I thought it was just a storm. You got to remember, I'm in Georgia when all this is happening. At a convention with my wife's coffee shop, and a big windstorm comes through. I thought it was a rainstorm, so I thought the bad production was just the rainstorm. What had actually happened is the wind had come through and wrecked 3 of my solar arrays. It had dumped one panel over on top of another one, which took out 2, and then a third one. It had basically flipped the whole thing practically upside down, because I just had them like leaning against a chain link fence in one part and leaning against a shed in another, and it kind of backfired on me. So, but if that's the worst that happened, I mean, I really can't complain. Nothing got harmed or anything like that. I got home, I'm like, oh, I see what happened, and I set the panels back up, plugged in a couple of, I was fortunate enough that it pulled a couple of the plugs out of, and didn't cause any real damage. I thought too, the 2 panels that had fallen on top of each other, one fell over and landed on top of another set of solar. And I honestly thought I figured I was going to pick them up, and it would be like picking your iPhone up off of, after dropping it on the floor back when the 6 and the 7 were out, and you drop it once and the thing shatters. I really thought that's what it was going to be like, but there wasn't. Nothing was wrong. So, got very fortunate. All right, let's see if I really don't want to paint this again once I get it up there, so I'm going to double check some of these spots here and make sure they get an extra coat now. So it was an interesting trip, though, a week away, and all the automation, except when I played with things, seemed to work really well. I was very pleased with that. I had hooked up the BitMiner automation the 2 days before I left, and then I'd hooked up the Victron Servo, replacing the Venus off of a Raspberry Pi the night before I left. I really thought that one was going to backfire on me, but it didn't. It worked just fine. Matter of fact, it worked better than the Venus system, because I had all of the servo controls, which were very similar to the same. The only difference is that their software is very friendly with their own components and everything. So it had the native plugs and all that stuff on it. So that was kind of nice. Didn't really change a whole bunch, but it'll allow me to test some of these smart batteries, which was the purpose for getting it. I want to be able to plug in the smart batteries that are supposed to be able to work with the Victron system. And like, I got a Li-Time 12-volt battery that is in the bastard battery over there right now, being, parallel testing with other 12-volt batteries to see how it acts, which is a little squirrely about it, but it seems to work. But I'm beginning to not like the 12-volt smart batteries. I think I'm getting to the point where I just want them to give me a dumb battery that's maybe with Bluetooth, so at least I can check the state of charge and hook them up to the Raspberry Pi, so I can keep track of what they're actually reporting. But nothing really much more than that is really needed. Unless they can, well, maybe in a few years when they get it all perfected, that'll be really nice. They'll get it all perfected, and it'll be like, then you can go in there and you can just plug things in and they all work, and they're all, right now, everything, there's so many incompatibilities and things like that. It's just a pain. So, oh, look at that. I missed the whole damn side. So, all right, we're almost done here. Got some on the floor, damn it. All right, so that side's done, that side's done. And I need to do the top. Paint these edges, and then when I put that in there, even if it sticks out a little bit, they're all painted, and it doesn't, I don't have to go figure out how to get the paint up in the corners and stuff. It'll just look like I did a good paint job on it. So that'll be easy enough. And all right, here we go. Almost done. Okay. Those sides don't need to be perfect. They just need to be enough when I put it up in there and screw it in. I don't have to worry about what did I do with the lid? All right, I hid it from me. Oh, there it is. All right, we'll put the lid back on this. And I am going to try to catch some of this black paint before I have it all over me. All right. Yeah, let's see if we can slide this down here out of the way. I don't know how long that's going to take to dry. We've only got 2 plugs here. Oh, and I got all that complicated stuff there too. I think we won't do that. I don't think we're going to do the whole thing tonight. I think we're just going to wait for this and then do this piece here. And then maybe we'll do the other piece of this. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So we can, oh, I got that piece of wood right in the way. So I'm thinking maybe we take the one we got cut, we install it from here to here, we get the plugs mounted back on here again, and we call it for the night. The problem that I'm having now is I'm thinking as I start to cut for this side over here, all that's going to get in that fresh paint, and I really don't want that. So if we put this one back on, we can get this plug on, we can get this plug back on, we can get that battery hooked back in, and then we can come back and do that another night. That end isn't quite as important, but it also has the complexity of I have to deal with all the solar strings coming in and route those up and out. Cut out the 2 outlets isn't going to be that big of a deal, but that's going to be a much bigger progress because I've got to disconnect all the solar and run them through the wood and mount that combiner box and everything too. So I think what I'll do is I'll get this one on here. I'll give it a few minutes to dry out, and then I'm going to go take this brush over and put it in some water, and I'll be right back. See you guys in just a second. All right, here we are. Turn on some light background music here. All right, how's everybody doing? You still there? All right, let's see what we got going on here. I don't know how close to dry this is. Not at all close. Okay, so while we wait for that to dry, we will, what will we do? Oh, I'll show you some statistics from the BitMiner the last few days. This has been an interesting trip. So for those of you who don't know, my wife owns a coffee trailer, and we do a bunch of conventions also. So she does, between the coffee trailer and the conventions, we do a couple of indoor conventions every year, usually really big ones. This was one of the larger ones. So we had the full crew there, and it was about a week long. So we served quite a bit of coffee. Let me see if I can get, let me see what screen this shows when I ask it to show me a screen capture. Okay, that's pretty good. And then maybe I can get the one of these on it also. That's probably not the one I want. I want there's got to be a way I can turn on. Oh, yeah. That'll work. Okay. There we go. What screen is that? Is that this one? It is. Oh, hey. Okay. So let's take a look at, let me just make this smaller. Not so important that you see me. It is important that you see the screen, however. All right, so here we have the, this is my, what you want to call it. This is my Home Assistant. So it is a combination of, I wonder why it's reporting no battery. That's interesting. I wonder if that disconnected when I unplugged that battery. Interesting. Okay. Either way, those Lux batteries are at 36. I don't know why the shunt. Oh, because I've got it unplugged. Okay, let's replug back in the shunt, because I unplugged it when we went to hook this up, and that's why it's showing that it's not available. The hell did I put the wire? Well, right here. Okay. So we'll just take this down here and plug this in temporarily here while we wait for that to dry. Okay. Hopefully that starts that going again. Let's see if it just shows up. It should just show up here in a second. That's what happens when you start pulling wires on your system. Things just stop working. Looks like the inverter's there and everything. The shunt looks like it's there, or let's double check. Would it be there? The charge controller wouldn't be showing up. So we're showing PV power, and it is showing 0. So it is working. Just the battery is not showing up. Get that plugged in. Looks like I got it plugged in. Oh, and you know what? I also disconnected its power connection. Shit. It can't operate without power. So we'll take this one and we will plug in the power. And let's see if that does it. Now, if I plugged in the power, it'll start working. If I plugged in the auxiliary, I don't know if it'll work or not. Maybe it'll work with one and it won't work with the other. So we'll give it a shot either way. So where is it? Come on. Nope. Guess that ain't it. Damn it. I'm gonna plug this one in too. All right, that one will definitely get it to work. Boom, and there it goes. Okay, so battery is at 41%. The Lux Power battery is at 36. So this is a combination of those 300 amp hour batteries that I've got there, and this is the combination of all of the batteries, the three batteries plus the bastard battery and all that kind of stuff. So it's just basically a combination of everything. So the shunt is a much more accurate representation is what is there than the other one. Now, if you look at this screen, this is very confusing because I got 2 or 3 different solar systems here. So over here on the left are the 2 eco-worthy batteries that I showed you over there. Right now, those are running in series as a 24-volt battery. And then there's the coffee trailer, which has another 100 amp hour battery. So together, that's 380 amp hours. And this shunt over here is what is showing that battery charge. So today it started off with 49%. And it charged up to 60, almost 62%, and it just kind of trickles away at about 19, 20 watts for that inverter to run it all night. Okay, so that's those batteries over here. Then these 2 here are the 2 Chinese batteries that are part of that bastard battery I pointed out, and the LiTime battery, which is the one that I want to check with the solar shed over there, and it's come in conjunction with that dummy, what is that thing called? That Super Empower, that little mini Super Empower 12 volts. So those 4 are in series to create a 48 volt battery. And that's just kind of a test I'm running to see how they handle running in parallel together. All 3 different brands, actually 4 different brands, and from different manufacturers at different times and everything. And it's actually, they've been working really well. Now, the odd thing is this reports some really weird percentages, but it's over a 5-minute aggregate, and I'm not even sure how this app is reporting it, because if I log in with a Bluetooth, it's not what it reports. It's showing much closer to this 76 and 73 here, but even that is in much higher charge than what's showing on the shunt here or in the EG4. These seem to be the only 2 accurate ones here. These percentages seem to get really way off. And I know they're off because even though when it gets to 100%, it will continue to charge. And so they're not actually full when you get there, and you can tell by the voltage and stuff like that. So, but anyway, that's what all this is. So we got the 24 volt system batteries over here. We got a combination of the 48 volt battery systems here. And then we have the combo of the 3 EG4 battery systems here. Then I got a couple of switches here that show that the 2 charge controllers that are hooked to the 24 volt system, one that's usually in the coffee trailer is here, and it's off now because it's got no solar. And then the test solar system, and that is the normal 24 volt system, which sometimes it runs 12 volts, sometimes it runs 24 volt, depending on what I'm testing. Right now it's 24 volt. And it has this charge controller, and it's off because there's no solar there. And you can see these 2 systems are tied together, and the reason I tied them together is so that while I was out of town, when they got full, I could drain them with a single charge controller, charge verter, as opposed to having multiple charge control verters and me switching it back and forth manually, which is what I normally do when I'm home. So that battery system is at 61%, and the big 48 volt system behind me is at 40.9%. Now this is the one that I use for the to turn on the amp miner. That's this switch here. This will turn on when I have a set of rules, and let me show you the automation rules and how they work. So I've got 3 different, these 2 I've turned off. These were my original ways of doing it, and I'm just going to delete them because I didn't end up doing it that way. I ended up changing it to this new method. So what I came up with was 2 different ways to turn it on. First way is it triggers every 10 minutes, it goes out and it checks if I have the amp miner turned on. Now, the reason I put a switch in here for amp miner is this is just a, hey, I want this to come off and on, yes or no. This allows me to disable it when I'm out here and I'm working on it and I don't want it flipping the power on. I don't want it controlling any automation. If this is set off like that, then all the automation dies and nothing flips on or off at all. If this is on, then the system automatically turns the Antminer on when it needs to, shuts it off when it don't need to. So we can go through the what those automation rules are. So the first one is, if I have every 10 minutes, if I have it turned on, and if the battery is over 90%, if the battery is over 90%, I want the Antminer to run no matter what. Whether there's grid, it doesn't matter why. If it's over 90%, I want the Antminer to run. And that usually means that I've got some kind of charger running. I'm running some kind of test with discharging something and charging up my batteries. The sun's out and it's beaming out there or something along those lines. So that is why this rule exists, and I have not seen this one fire yet, because the normal day-to-day, this isn't a normal day-to-day operation. This is something caused the battery to get full, and I wanted a fail-safe to do it. Whether that's me testing grid feeds, testing a new charger. Sometimes I get chargers in from companies that say, I want you to test this 48-volt charger. I'll hook it up to the system, and I'll just let it charge my battery. So when it gets to 90%, I want it to turn it on and use that power. The second method, this one's where the brains of the thing is. First of all, every 5 minutes it checks. Now, a lot of people ask me, why do you put the time as the first trigger when, as opposed to just saying when the solar power is over 1500 or something like that? The reason I do that is the clock fires every 5 minutes no matter what. And what that means is that this only fires when it goes above 1500 the first time. And then it won't fire again until it drops back down below 1500 and goes and passes and surpasses it again. This one's the same way, the battery charge above 55. So that means if I have the Antminer turned off and the battery charge is, let's say, 52, by the time I turn the Antminer switch on, it's 60. Well, that trigger won't fire because it didn't go over 55 while it was turned on. So these don't fire all the time. They only fire when that event happens. So this is an easy way to get around it. It fires every 5 minutes regardless. So I can go into a trace and I can see every 5 minutes at 9:30, which it's now 9:33, as we can see here on the oh, you can't see, can you? It is 9:33 there. Now you can see 9:33. So at 9:35, this will fire again, and it's going to walk through each of these rules. So the debug is very, very simple. It basically goes to the first AND statement that I've got here, which is the Antminer on? Is the power above 1500? And is the charge of the battery above 55? So you can walk through the trace. The first one is the Antminer set the result? The result is true. True. The state is on. Do I want this to work? The answer is yes. It falls down to the next question. The next question is, is the wanted state above 1500? And the result is false. It's not. So then it bombs out here and does not run and ends this testing right here. No matter what, it's over. All right, now it would go on to this one if this one was true, and you can see the orange path highlights the path that it took. So here it didn't exit out early. It continued to the next question, and then it exited out on that one. But if it had been over 1500, then it would go to the third question, and the third question would ask, is the state of charge above 55? And if the answer is yes, then it would come down to this one, which is switch on the BitMiner. And that would turn that switch on, and that would cause it to start. The shutting it off is a much, much easier process. So shutting it off, I basically say every 2 minutes, if I have the BitMiner turned on, or if the BitMiner is turned on, first of all, because if it's off, I don't even want to take the CPU cycles to go through and run all the other tests. So it should basically come here and say, yep, the BitMiner is not running, skip all the tests, don't check anything because it doesn't matter, the BitMiner's on, there's no reason to check it. If mining is turned on, the automatic switching is turned on, then it goes on to the next phase. Then it says if the shunt charge is below 45 volts, in other words, if this back here behind me is 45 volts or less, if the power is below 1500, or if the grid is below 100. That means the grid has to be off, the solar's not coming in, and the battery is below 45 things. Now, if the battery is below 45 and I'm getting 1600 watts, theoretically, it could run to the point where it would kick on the grid if I had the grid plugged in. Now, I've only had the grid plugged in for the last week, so normally there won't be a grid option. But as you can see here, it could theoretically happen where it would do it that way. What I need to do is break this into two rules. The first one needs to say, if it's below 45, shut it off. The second one needs to say, if the, actually, it needs to say, if it's below 45 and I don't have any grid power, shut it off. This one probably needs to be removed because it's irrelevant if I have solar that isn't enough to support it. Now, what I might be able to do is change this to, if this is above, oh, and you know why? That's exactly why I did that. Because there's 3 strings feeding in here, and this only calculates 2 of them, meaning that there would be over enough power to support the whole thing if those 2 strings show 1500, meaning that if I have the solar system off, and at 3 in the afternoon, the batteries are set, are at 30%, and I turn it on and there's enough solar power for it to run the thing and it's already turned on, it won't shut off. Now, it won't turn on unless it has over 65%. So turning it on is a little bit, we get back down to here, it has to have, it's over 55% in order to turn it on. But if I turn it on and it's down at 30% and there's enough solar, meaning it's in the middle of the afternoon and I want it to go ahead and bit mine regardless of the power consumption, then I don't want it shutting it off on me. And that's why I did it that way. So I just wanted to make sure that if I had enough grid power, or if I have grid power on, or if I have enough solar coming in to support it, to not change anything. So that's kind of what the rules are there. Now let's look at some of the statistics on what actually happened today. So if we look at when this ran, and we can look at that here, you can see here it turned on right here at about 11:25 this morning, meaning that the battery got up to 55%, and then it ran all the way until 4:55. So at the 4:55 mark, and you can easily see if I come over here and look at the solar power, you can see that I was getting 4,000 watts at 12:55. So that's why that battery hit up to 11:55 up to here. All this went into the batteries, and then as soon as it clicked on, it settled down. Now we can actually look at the battery, and you can see here, this is where I clicked it on, or it clicked on right there with the automation. You can see it was climbing fast, 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 and then all of a sudden the automation clicked on, but there was still solar coming in, so the battery kept climbing all the way up to 63%, and then it ran all the way till 4:55, which was where it shut off, where we saw it shut off at 4:55 between here and here. It surpassed that 45%, and that's when it shut off automatically, and now it'll run overnight and then turn back on tomorrow when it gets to the right amount of battery power. So this has kept it pretty well balanced. It also keeps it, and the reason I put it at these levels and not other levels, because I tried some other levels. I could move this up 10 or 12% to the top or to the bottom. And I was telling you about a few days ago when I messed with it, and you can see yesterday when those panels were out, it clicked on and then it clicked right back off because it just didn't have enough power to keep it running. So it ran with enough power here and then shut off right. I think it actually turned on right about there somewhere. It was kind of really weird. But that's because I had 3 strings that were out. And if I go back another day, 2 days maybe? Yeah, here it is. So here I am messing with it, and the battery starts the day off way up here in the 60s, and I tell it not to run, and it charges, because this is in the evening, so it's 12 o'clock at night, and it charges slowly, and then I give it some grid power because I'm farting around with something and I accidentally left it on. So it gets all the way up to 100%, and then I let it run all night long, and then the next day, it didn't turn on because I had the old rules that said wait till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and I had shut off the rule that said at 90% come on. I was just screwing with it, and it backfired on me because then it sat here throughout the afternoon at 100%, producing more than it could, because it didn't have any battery room left. It's just crazy. And then it came on and burned itself down, and everything got back to normal in one day. But it seems to be working really well. And you know, and I don't play around. The Home Assistant to me is truly a tool, so this isn't super fancy. It's just to give me the details that I need to run things. So you'll see lots of stats and me just move things around from show to show. I put new statistics on here all the time and move them around. So, and then we'll take a look at this one. This is the 24-volt battery system. So you can see here, it's taken a couple of days. I'm going to stretch this out to a week. It's taken a couple of days to recover from. So here it was charging and charging and charging each day. And then here the charge inverter kicked on. And when the charge inverter, and I don't know what this is. Oh, I know what that is. That was when I put in the new Servo GX and realized all the battery consumption rates were set wrong in Victron. It's very interesting. I'll show you this on the VRM. So when you hook up a come on, that's not what I want. So when you hook up a Victron, yeah. Servo test. There we go. So this, I want to actually see the device. Can I do that from this? Sure I can. Shunt. I don't want to do it that way. Oh, okay, good. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want. So when you set up the shunt, this is the shunt, you have to set up this configuration, and it was set for by default for a lead acid battery. And what it basically is, this configuration right here, this 1.025, is from a lead acid battery, as you're pulling more, it doesn't produce as much. You may take a 100 amp hour battery, and if you pull it at 10 amps, you may get 100 amps out of it, 100 amp hours. If you pull it at 50 amps, you may only get 60 amp hours out of it. So this is this Puka exponent is basically that pull to ratio of what you're going to get out of the battery. Now, lithium iron phosphate batteries are very, very efficient. So what was wrong is my charger was thinking that I wasn't getting the right amount of charge because my charge rate was so fast that it was reporting a lot less. And that's what happened when I reset it. I got the percentages right. Now it's keeping track perfectly. But it's kind of strange because usually when you tell it that it's a lithium iron phosphate battery to use that profile, that it automatically changes it. But it didn't change it on this one for me, which was kind of odd. So that shunt was acting very funny. But you can see here, this servo is the Servo, which is the new one that I hooked up the day before I left. And this is a Raspberry Pi that is hooked to the one right behind me here. And it has the same, this is the one we just plugged in to get it to work. And this is on the 48 volt system here. So, all right. I don't think is there any questions about that or any of this stuff that you guys want to know about? Otherwise, if not, I think I'm going to switch us back to the other screen and see if we can get that board mounted and get the wall outlets back live again for tomorrow's action. All right. If so, just put them in the chat. We'll get to them. I am going to, let's find my board here. Let's take this to, I think it's that screen that was working the best for us. It is. All right. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to tilt this down a little bit, slide this chair out of the way, and then we can see if we can get this. Hopefully this thing is dried. It is kind of humid out here. For the most part, some of it's dry, some of it's not. Really wish I had. I'm going to see if I can find a pair of gloves and just go ahead and get this done, because I really don't want to wait any longer for it. All right, so I'm just going to put on this old nasty pair of gloves here, and we're going to get this mounted. Regardless if it's ready or not, I'm going to pull back off of this shunt. I'm going to leave those power connections on there because I don't want to go find a screwdriver and pull them out again. Oh. Slide this back here. Oh wow, that's going to work great. Hopefully I'm not blocking you guys' view completely. There we go. Yeah, let me find some screws and a screwdriver. What did I attach that with? I think I'm just using these deck screws. Just grab a few of these deck screws here, and we will. Actually, I like this little one. It's very light. The only problem I have with this little one is that it doesn't quite have the power of the bigger ones. That's the only downside to it. Let's see if I can lift this up into place at the same time as you stay on there, so that when I need you, you're there. All right. What I mean by not having enough power. If I start off going in fast, oh, it's not even going in fast anymore. There we go. All right, that's going to look good. Okay. Probably put one or two across the top up here. I don't really want to hit that line running down. Matter of fact, I don't want to take a chance on hitting any of those lines running down up in there. So doesn't really need it. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to leave it out because that 2x4 has pathways for me to run wires down through. And the wires for the wall plugs are fed through there. The conduit for this is fed through there. All the outlets are fed through there. So I think I'm just going to leave it alone, not run anything in there. I'm going to run one more over here. And then we're going to move those batteries out of the way. Whoa, that ain't what I want. Run one more over here. Try this again. See that the only one ran over here is down low. Okay. Now that thing is on good and tight. I can get another screw in. Ow. Caught my damn glove. It's pretty funny. All right. All right, so we can caulk that over like I did this one up here, and you'll never see it later. And that's where I brushed it, so that can be covered up also. That looks pretty good. Then we can slide these back into place. Can't wait to get the rack to solve for this. It'll be nice. Get these into a rack and add a couple more 100 amp hours of battery power to this system. Ugh. Wow, those are heavy. All right. Slide this into place. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the comms. Now, all right, so put the positive back over here. And I need to find that. Let me see what I did with that thing. Find out what I did with it real quick. And I'm done with that paint. I'm going to pull these gloves off. Got to be here somewhere. Socket wrench, where did you go? Yeah. Oh, I put it back in the tool bag. What kind of silliness is that? Put it back in the tool bag. All right. Get you good and tight for now. We'll pull out a torque wrench here in a little bit. Double check them. But I want to get them back up and running. Keep that voltage as close together as it can be. I haven't turned this on yet, so the breaker is still off here. And it wasn't off for any significant voltage change. All right, now when I flip this on, if there is a huge difference in voltage, and I mean several volts and a significant amount, then what can happen, and it's really hard for it to be enough to make too big of a difference, but I want to point out that there is a chance of it. That if you have a ton of batteries and you have one new battery that you're adding, you need to be very careful when you add that battery. If you add it at a very, let's say this is a very low voltage and these are all very high voltages, what will happen is it will pull from these high voltage batteries and slam into this little one. And that means that, let's say I had 10 100 amp hour batteries that were at 55 volts and I have one at 50 volts, you're going to have 10 batteries feeding through this bus straight into it. So it's very important that you keep your batteries fused to prevent something like that from causing a problem. Now, would it be enough to harm it? Maybe, maybe not. Some of the results that I've seen from people that have done it, I've seen 70, 80, 90, 100 amps, but I haven't seen anything that could do any significant damage yet. That doesn't mean that if you had enough batteries that it couldn't cause any damage. So that's something to watch for. At the same time, I had this off for about an hour, and you saw on my chart there, the drain over the last couple of hours is 0.5% of my battery voltage. So even 0.5% isn't going to make enough voltage change on this to make any problems. So I should be able to just turn it on and there'd be no problem. Now, if this was a Bluetooth battery or something like that, I could see that there's probably some probably a small amount of voltage transferring from one to another, probably not more than an amp or two at this point, if anything at all. Now, what should have happened is my inverter up here should have changed, and it did, to 300 amp hours. So as soon as I turned that battery back on, the comms reconnected all 3 batteries, and now it is reporting 300 amp hours instead of 100 amp hours, instead of 200 amp hours. So we only got the one done. We still have the system over there that we need to do for the other one. But this is kind of what it's like at the this is what it's like at, you know, working on the solar shed night to night. We just hang out. I do some work here and do it. I started off doing a lot of different live streams and stuff, and this one seems to be the most fun, and people seem to get the most out of it. So, but I am going to get back to some regular live streams. If you guys got some ideas of what you would like to see, I would be glad to do that, where we go in and do, you know, the typical Q&A and that kind of stuff. But the live builds have been a lot of fun, and I had a lot of requests for them, so I figured I would do a few more of them. Anyway, I think it's going to be it for the night, unless there's something that you guys specifically want to see. And I'm going to call it quits, go in and have some dinner, maybe have a cold one, relax and go back to work tomorrow. As I've been out of town for a week, it's been a long time since I've done a lot of work at work. So I'm going to get back to that, and we will talk to you guys later. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Oh, and I do want to thank all of my subscribers. You guys are amazing. I mean, this is just, we are at 18,458 subscribers. Thank you so much to all of you guys for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all that you do for me. You've made my channel a huge success, and I really, really do this all for you guys. I enjoy the heck out of building it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it too. But a lot of the things I do are specifically done just to make sure that you guys can follow along and you get your questions answered and stuff. So I feel free to let me know. And thanks again for everything that you do. Have a great night. We'll see you on the next episode. And to my members, my subscribers, thank you. To my members, enjoy the early view of the content. You always get the earliest view. I try to post it at least as many days in advance schedule as I can. Sometimes I'm weeks ahead, sometimes I'm only days ahead, and sometimes I'm only a few hours ahead. Right now I'm running a few days ahead, but there was a time during October and November where I was running 3 weeks ahead, and I had 3 weeks of content out there for the subscribers. So for a couple of bucks a month, if you're interested in the early stuff, that's great. If not, no sweat, no problem. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next time.